Paul, thanks for joining me here today on my couch. We're going to talk a little tech, a little entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Would love to hear some of your backstory. So how did you get into this entrepreneurial world?
Boy, it's a long story. Where do you start?
Yeah, that's a good point. So what are the highlights, the interesting points?
I mean, where I'll start, I think it was always in my blood to begin with.
Yeah.
You know, I was the guy that, we played football out in the yard. I was the one that was building like my own goalposts and, my own pitching machines. And, I was always kind of tinkering with those kind of things from a super early age.
Yeah, same with me. Just being a young child and back in cassette tape days,
Yep.
I would take them apart. How does this work? And
Totally, yeah. I remember taking my bike apart, and
Yeah.
I was all good. I took the lower crankcase apart. All the ball bearings fell all over the place.
You're
Like,
like, where did they go?
So I think it was in my blood early on to
Yeah.
kind of play around and try to invent things. But when I went to school, I decided like I needed to get a real job and study a real, sort of discipline. And I studied economics. And I came out of economics with an economics degree out of Santa Barbara and went to go work for a couple of different companies as a finance person. And I ended up going into advertising, but I was a finance person within advertising.
Yeah, so econ logical would lead to a finance job, but the jump to advertising is a bigger one.
Yeah, and I was, in the finance department, but I was, within this big advertising agency. But I started getting pulled from the president of the ad agency into more and more brainstorming sessions
They were
topics
tapping into your mind,
Yes.
your entrepreneur mind.
and topics that I was passionate about. I was passionate about music and sports and art and things like that. And so when it was the kind of client he saw my interest, he would pull me into that. And then ultimately that turned into me going into we actually bought ourselves away, and I became kind of a co-founder of this small ad agency. We bought ourselves away from a big ad agency.
Okay.
And we grew it from like 6 people to 40 people, and it was a blast. I got to do lots of different things within that role. But I think generally I went from that sort of thing to a financial services area where I could use more product management skills. So I really got a kick out of doing kind of more multidisciplinary sort of work. And so when you're a product manager, any given day I can be sort of focused on strategy, I can be focused on sales, I can be focused on product. And so it really gave me a chance to work on a lot of different things as a product person. So that kind of got my juices going.
Tell me what was going through your head when you broke away, because a lot of people who are listening to and watching the show are thinking, oh, I do like my job in the corporate world, or some are saying I hate my job in the corporate world, but it pays the mortgage.
Yeah.
What was going through your head when you made the leap? Because there's a lot of uncertainty when you jump into that entrepreneurial
I think,
world.
funny, but 2 things I think were going on when I really made the jump into the entrepreneur world. One thing was I was young. So like, all right, what's the risk here?
No family.
No family.
Yeah.
What's the risk? I'm going to go do something for a year. Like, it's an adventure. Let's go for it. The other thing was, when I really made the jump, it was, sort of the dot-com era. And so it was like, I can't live in San Francisco in 1998 and not work for a startup company.
My 99 was my first, my second startup, but 96 was my first. So I rode that wave. Oh, yeah.
And I just can't even tell you, I so distinctly remember walking to work my first day to the job. It was a 10-person startup. I was the first product person hired, thinking, all right, now I'm really going to work for a real company. Like, this is going to be, this is going to be a kick. And it was just so palatable.
Yeah.
Like, now I'm really going to sink my teeth into some real work here.
Yeah.
And there was some real work there. There was some crazy stuff. It was a wild ride, as these things always are.
It was insane. I remember someone saying, my mother told me this. Did you see it on the Jim Lehrer show? I think he had a guest on, and he said, if you're not raising a few $1 million in 1999 in Silicon Valley, there's something seriously wrong with you.
Yeah, right.
Because that's when I had raised a couple million.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, at least I did.
Yeah.
Nothing seriously wrong with me.
No, it was insane times. We used to have, is it Cisco, I think, the guys that would sell you they would lease you the computers for your startup. They were actually offering investments as well.
Yeah,
so they'd also help fund your company as well as give you sell you or loan you or lease you the servers.
Something to get started.
I don't think it turned out so well for them, but that shows how frothy the environment was.
Frothy. I like that word. Frothy. Very frothy. And then all the froth disappeared.
Yes, exactly.
And what did you do then? So in early 2000, so March 2000, things really dried up.
Yeah. I went back into financial services, but it was a financial services startup.
Right. Which one?
Financial Engines.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they were, and they were. There was a
The
couple.
South?
Yeah, the Palo Alto.
Yeah. I think I met them once.
Yeah, it was
because of
founded.
Ms. Money.
Yeah, and it was founded by a guy that won the Nobel Prize in modern portfolio theory, and we essentially took his theories and built software around it.
Right.
Okay, and before I got there, the plan was to go consumer. So it was going to be a big consumer push. Like everyone should be using these investment advices, his investment advice and investment sort of strategy to manage their investments. But we turned the thing around and changed the model, which was brilliant, where we would sell the investment advice to big companies. And the idea was these big companies then would give it to their employees to help manage their 401k account.
Yeah.
So it was much more business to business kind of thing. But the other day it was consumer oriented.
And people wanted to fund business to business because the B2C just exploded.
Yeah, too much money for marketing with, who knows what kind of traction you're going to get. So it was a real brilliant sort of change. And there was also a fiduciary responsibility that the companies could check the box on.
Yeah.
The fact that, people like Enron, boy, I'm in big trouble if all my employees invested in Enron stock in their 401k accounts.
Right.
But if they've got financial engines, they can sort of say, hey, look, I gave them the tools.
Yeah.
They decided to do something different.
Yeah.
Because we wouldn't have given the advice to have that concentrated of a position.
And how was that run for you? So the financial engines that felt pretty solid, you were comfortable.
Yeah, no, I loved it.
They had enough money.
Yeah, so I think at that, they were a little further along.
Yeah.
They'd been around for a while. They had a really good team because the guy that founded it, he was a Stanford guy. They had a whole bunch of different Stanford, really high quality people involved. It was about, I think, 125 people when I started, and it got up to, we went over 200 people.
Okay, yeah, that's a good.
So we had a pretty
company,
solid,
right.
We had a couple of transitions. We did this one transition where we created managed accounts, so you didn't have to go in and actually choose which investments. We would do it for you.
Yeah.
And there was a different business model for that. We just take, half a basis or 50 basis points to do that. And that was a real kind of fundamental change in making sure we're getting people, making money off all the people in the company. So pretty, to some extent, more stable. We were really kind of gauged on how many enterprise deals we could sell as opposed to how many users we could bring in.
What employee were you in that company?
I was probably, if you really count all of it, I was probably like, a couple hundred.
So you weren't there at the real early stages.
Right,
Who did they raise money from?
Oh God, I can't remember.
So some of the bigger VCs.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I can't remember.
Do you know how much?
I can't remember how much.
Well, with 200 employees, at least 10 million.
yeah, for sure.
Then they were making money, so.
Right, exactly. And then we ended up going public.
Okay.
It took a while, but we ended up going public. And the great thing with the managed accounts, the revenue, that's a real pretty stable sort of revenue stream. And so the market loves that kind of story.
Yeah.
And then when the market, as long as the market's going up, they have more assets under management, and more assets under management mean more fees coming in. And so they had a bit of a dip when the 2008, 2007, the stock market went down so much. But now the stock market's come up, they've just been doing phenomenally well.
Yeah.
Without a lot of, not a lot of bells and whistles and new product innovation.
Yeah, I'm going to look at that.
Yeah,
maybe for my own portfolio.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting to talk about this whole entrepreneurial life cycle in Silicon Valley, where I started in '96, and we're looking at, 17 years into it. So to hear your stories, how you broke out on your own startup through the advertising world and then went into the financial world, is really fascinating to see what trends were taking hold at different time periods. So we got through your financial engines type. You left that what year?
Let's see, I think that was around, what was it, 92? No, that's all right, 2002.
Yeah, 2002.
Yeah, right.
And then where did you go on from there? What was your next
Yeah,
stop?
so from there I really got to a point that if I was going to kind of, forward my product management, I really started to enjoy that role.
Yeah.
I knew that, I needed to be in a place that was more of a consumer-facing sort of entree into, those kind of businesses just fit me better.
Yeah.
So I started doing more consumer-facing stuff. I worked for a company called LoopNet. It was a commercial real estate, but we basically were selling directly to brokers. So it's not the most best consumer-facing experience, but that was kind of one entree. And then from there, I went to go work for a company called Snowcap. And this is when I got introduced. These are the folks that started Napster, and this was the first business that they created after the day after Napster went bankrupt.
I remember
this
that.
This is the start of their next company. And so essentially what we were doing there was creating a way that people that are on MySpace, music page or artist pages, they'd have a way to sample and buy.
Yeah, MySpace
music.
prior to Facebook.
Right.
Yeah.
And I still think, MySpace at that point in time was a really great place for discovering music and for artists to kind of, tell the community a little bit more about what they are.
And easily get that up.
Right.
Because the tools were so simple to use.
Yep.
Yeah.
So at that time, you could go to you could go to MySpace and put MySpace.thePixies, and their Pixies page would come up. It was a really great, and you'd see like the latest, concert tours, and then Snowcap's ideas. You could actually, sample their music and buy their music.
Right.
Okay. So I started going more into that route. I have a huge passion around music, so it was a good fit for me.
Let's jump forward to, I think, Pandora. Are you able to tell the story about Tim and the checks? Can you tell that on
Yeah,
camera?
sure.
Okay.
I think so.
Because we're really looking for, you've got entrepreneurs that are worried. People are often working for no money. And so you left Snowcap, and then that was
my entree to Pandora.
Yeah. Paul, you, in your early days, came from Visa, and you made this big decision to leave Visa, even though they were quadrupling, matching your 401k.
Mm-hmm.
And people said that you were nuts. What was it in you that made you leave?
It seemed like an easy decision at that point in time. For me personally, just in my gut, I felt like I wasn't invigorated. I wasn't like energized by the people that I was working with or the opportunities in front of me. Even though we were working on huge opportunities, for example, the product development life cycle was like around 2 years.
Yeah.
And it was just like death. It was like
so
death by 1,000 cuts.
different from entrepreneurship, which is 2 weeks sometimes.
Yeah. So you just wanted more of that sort of energy and that sort of sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just felt like the apathy so easily set in.
Right.
And who wants to sign up for a 2-year project? So many 2-year projects never get out the door. Or they change so radically by the time they do get out the door that it's not the initial idea you even had.
So it was very financially rewarding, but emotionally and
intellectually,
inspirationally and intellectually, it didn't have those challenges. And then you eventually ended up at Pandora.
Right.
And how did that fulfill you?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds corny, but the real fun of it is the sort of the team dynamics and aspects around like, hey, we're trying to create this really cool thing. We're really passionate about it, and
pure pioneers.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, so
Pandora,
we were very inspired
definitely.
by the mission, to create a service that we could connect people with music they love, and like what more. It may not important, but like energizing task in my mind, being so interested in music and discovering new music. And also turning on artists that aren't easily discovered to a whole new broader audience was really, really motivating for us. And then I think we also just we had a lot of respect for each other, and we had a lot of sort of common passions, that it was a real team dynamic to try to make this stuff happen.
And what made you come alive is you finally worked for a company where you found your passion. Because you really love music. Mm-hmm. Do you play or do you sing?
I played as a kid, and I've tried to play as an adult. Not very successfully, to tell you the truth. My dad's a very accomplished musician. I've just love music. I've been surrounded by music my whole life, so I really enjoy it, and I get a huge appreciation from it. But I don't really play. I play a little bit of guitar, but it's not
Sing? Are you a singer?
I do sing a little
dance?
bit. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Who doesn't dance?
Well, I love to dance.
Yes,
That's
yes.
really my
as
passion
well.
is
Me
dancing.
As well. But I think for the end of the day, it's just really super fun to work for a startup, and actually, the other part is to have a real contribution to the success of it.